Let me call on the President to deliver closing remarks to conference. Comrade President.
Amandla, Matla, Manda, Manda, Ashu, Matimba, all power. Comrade National Chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, Deputy President Paul Mashatile, national officials in their entirety, members of the National Executive Committee, newly elected out of the box, delegates, and comrades and friends. Comrades, we have reached the end of the 55th National Conference. This conference is quite historic in many respects. It is historic in that for the very first time, the African National Congress has succeeded in electing 3 women as part of their officials. That is something to be applauded, as we just did, and to be celebrated. It is also the first time that we have, through the use of technology, brought together some 3,000 and so delegates from across the country into a virtual forum or platform to receive commission reports and adopt resolutions and to conclude the work of the 55th National Conference. And comrades, it is also quite historic that sitting where I was seated as the president, inspecting whether any one of you was falling asleep, I found no one asleep. You were all so attentive. You've been meeting today in the 9 centers across the country, quite committed to the work of finishing the tasks of this conference. And today you started work at 10:30 and it is now 2 o'clock in the morning and you are all still wide awake. This is historic itself. Now, comrades, this conference will be recalled as a decisive moment in our movement's history, where we reaffirmed the values, the principles of this great movement, as well as reaffirming the ANC's historic mission. This conference will be recalled as a moment when we stood as one in turning our backs on the destructive tendencies and practices that have eroded the people's confidence in our movement. This conference will also be remembered as a key moment on the path of renewal of the African National Congress. It will, yes, indeed, be remembered as being a key foundation stone on forging the unity of the African National Congress. Let us remember this moment, a moment when we all agreed that renewal and the unity of the ANC are key pillars of strengthening our organization. So let us frame this moment in our minds and never forget it. We all agreed and acknowledged our shortcomings and considered the factors that also contributed to the erosion of our standing amongst our people. Through Vision 2032 and the Renewal Plan of Action tabled by the ANC Veterans League, we have described the organization that we are striving to be and have developed a roadmap towards the achievement of that organization we want to be. This 55th National Conference will also be recalled as a conference at which we adopted a credible, far-sighted, and ambitious program to meet the challenges that our nation faces. The discussions that we have had in our policy conference preceding this conference, and the discussions that we have had in our commissions during the first part of the conference, as well as the reports we adopted today, tonight, and this morning, place the needs and the interests of the people first, especially the working class and the poor. Our discussions have outlined the steps that we must necessarily take to build an economy that serves all South Africans. This is an economy that bridges the huge gap between wealth and poverty, between privilege and disadvantage, between black and white, and between men and women. As we said in our declaration, we are beginning, yes, to see some developments in the economy where we are returning to also pre-COVID levels of our economic strength. While the economy is producing better outcomes and growth sectors are beginning to perform slightly better, we believe that as the ANC, we must ensure that our growth is inclusive and creates much-needed jobs and opportunities for all. We have said that the future of our country demands that we prioritize development and empowerment for women and the young people of our country, as well as the disabled people in our country, or people living with disabilities. We have agreed on actions to address the immediate challenges that our country faces: chronic unemployment, an electricity crisis, the rising cost of living, while setting out the path that we must follow to further transform our economy. Our resolution set out the path towards comprehensive and sustainable social protection, and to the provision of affordable housing and basic services for all. We addressed and agreed on measures to accelerate land reform and provide support for the productive use of that land as set out in our declaration. We have had extensive discussions on how we should prioritize safety and security of the people of our country. We have outlined steps to further strengthen our police service and other law enforcement agencies to improve the effectiveness of our criminal justice system and to improve the security of our borders as well. The challenge of gender-based violence and femicide received in-depth attention, and we agreed on prioritizing the task of ending all forms of violence against women and children. This conference has provided guidance on the strengthening of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide as adopted at the Gender-Based Violence Summit. We have also provided clear direction to our structures and our deployees in government on further steps necessary to address this pandemic, including how the budgets of various departments should be deployed and utilized. Delegates have confirmed that the transformation of our society requires a developmental state, a state that is capable, adequately resourced, and effectively managed. We have adopted resolutions on professionalizing our public service, eradicating graft and waste, and monitoring more closely and more regularly the performance of our deployees in government. We have agreed on actions to strengthen local government, to improve the provision of services to all citizens, and to promote integrated planning and implementation through the district development model. This conference has reiterated our commitment to a better Africa and a better world. We have agreed to strengthen our relations with fellow liberation movements and like-minded parties across the continent and the global South in pursuit of progressive ideals, sustainable development, peace, and stability. We agreed that our country needs to play a progressive role in our foreign policy in a multipolar world. We should continue working with progressive forces to advance our developmental objectives. We will chair BRICS this year and should strengthen our relations with our BRICS partners. Our participation in SADC and the African Union must be aimed at advancing the interests of our country and our continent. Conference has directed us to strengthen the Pan-African Women's Organization, PAU, our support for the people of Palestine, Western Sahara, and Cuba remains solid and firm. We support the calls for the lifting of punitive and cruel sanctions against Zimbabwe, Cuba, Venezuela, and elsewhere where such sanctions have been imposed unilaterally and unjustifiably. This conference has mandated government to pursue the reform of international institutions so that they are more inclusive, representative, and responsive to the needs of the developing world. Delegates to this conference have recognized the grave threat posed by climate change to our country and indeed to all of humanity. We have resolved to reduce our carbon emissions, but we have also resolved to end load shedding and restructure Eskom so that it can better serve the people of our country. We have resolved that the transition to a low-carbon economy must be just and inclusive, and that it must be executed at a pace that is in concert with the developmental needs of our country. It must prioritize the welfare of workers and communities and industries most affected by the transition. Our mixed energy approach must guide our transition as we also use new technologies to help us through this transition. Over the course of 5 days in December and in our discussions today, last night and this morning really, we have crafted a program of transformation that prioritizes action and urgency. It is a program that directly addresses the needs of our people today, tomorrow, and into the future. But the value of this program, and indeed the value of this conference, will ultimately be measured by the actions we must now take to implement it. Working together as an alliance and all sectors of society through a forged solidarity and social compact, we will be able to implement our program of action and accelerate economic recovery and growth. As we rise from this 55th National Conference, as we return to our branches and the deployments from the venues where we have gathered, our focus must be on turning the resolutions that we have taken into reality. The people of South Africa must see and feel a real difference in their lives. Comrade Mac Maharaj, our veteran, has given us useful guidance by getting us to ask ourselves pertinent questions. He said we should ask ourselves questions about what our people want from and expect from the ANC. He went on to say we should ask ourselves whether we will be able to reverse the decline of our movement in the eyes of our people. He correctly said our tasks are numerous and extensive. They are immediate, medium-term, and some are long-term. But he suggested that we should focus on implementable tasks so that we can demonstrate to our people that indeed we are serious about addressing their needs. That is wise counsel indeed. Our people must experience a renewed and revitalized ANC that serves their interests and meets their needs. The significance of this period in the history of our struggle and the tasks that are therefore required that we should undertake are effectively expressed in the consolidated report of the commissions that were presented here, but more importantly, also set out more clearly on the strategy and tactics section, which says, all delegates to the 55th conference agree that South Africa and the ANC are at a moment of fundamental consequence. This moment requires clarity of thought, firm conviction and courage, as well as decisiveness and an unshaken commitment to the ideals that have inspired generations of South Africa's freedom fighters who sacrificed and suffered so that our country can be free and our people can live in dignity, close quotes. This is indeed a time for firm conviction and decisiveness. As we prepare for the 111th anniversary of the formation of our movement on this coming Sunday, the 8th of January 2023, let us remember the great responsibility that history has placed on our shoulders to renew the ANC and to revive the National Democratic Revolution. Let us also, comrades, remember that we have a responsibility to those who have walked this path before us and to the generations that will follow to act with extraordinary resolve to restore the struggle for liberation. Let us conclude this conference united in our determination to spare neither strength nor courage as we strive together to build a better life for all our people. Let us demonstrate through our tireless work that the ANC lives and that the ANC leads. Amandla. Viva ANC, viva. Thank you, comrades, and go well.
Amandla, awethu sakwenza lento ke ngoku. We are closing the conference now. We're not adjourning. From December to now, we're closing it. We are going to sing the national anthem.